Good morning, everybody. Now, Ukraine seems to have mostly disappeared from the front pages of newspapers and the headlines on broadcasters in the mainstream media. And where it does appear, the narrative has almost completely changed from what it was over the first 2.5 months of the special operation in Ukraine by the Russian forces. What they've said for 2.5 months is that Russia is evil, that this is completely unjustified, that there's no reason for the Russian invasion, as they put it, or whatsoever, and Russia is losing, and they couldn't hold their positions around Kiev and Kharkov, and they've been pushed back by the Ukrainian army, and defeat is certain, and sanctions are working, and we're going to destroy Russia's economy, and even to the point where Biden, at one point, called for regime change in Russia, but then quickly rode back from that. But now, just a couple of days ago, there was a headline which says, Ukraine's forces suffering painful losses in the Donbas, which is a complete turnaround from what's been said over the first part of the conflict. As I said, this would have been unthinkable even 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it is because that is the truth, and they cannot now deny this because Russia is pushing through the Donbas very, very slowly, but very, very certainly, very, very effectively and systematically, taking village by village, town by town. And obviously we know about the situation in Mariupol, which ended about a month ago, where there were a lot of National Socialists cauldroned in a siege there in the Azovstal plant, making a last stand, and that fell after a month or so of a systematic siege, basically, to cut them off, and then eventually they ran out of food and weapons and water and had to surrender, which is the Russian strategy. And they're doing this effectively now in the Donbas area. So they've just taken most of Severodonetsk, key town, in the Donbas area. And again, we've got a situation similar to the Azovstal plant in the Azot industrial zone of Severodonetsk, where there are 2,500 National Socialists and foreign mercenaries caught in a cauldron there, and they can't get out. It's so obvious now, even the Western mainstream media, which spins and twists things continuously and inverts things so that the narrative that they are spinning and creating is the opposite to the truth. They cannot now even deny that the Russian special operation is having incredible success in the Donbas. And the thing is, we're so used to lies in the West from politicians, from journalists and reporters, from most of the mainstream media. It's a surprise to us when you have President Putin and Lavrov, the foreign secretary of Russia. They just say exactly what they mean, and they tell us exactly what they want and exactly what they're going to do. And we're surprised when actually they do exactly what they say they're going to do. And they've said, look, do not bring Ukraine into NATO. And what does the West do? They try to bring Ukraine into NATO. Do not send weapons to Ukraine. The West sends weapons to Ukraine. Because they said that because if you do, we're going to go in and we're going to, as they say, denazify, demilitarize Ukraine and ensure that it will stay neutral in the future, in perpetuity. And that was the aim of what they call the special operation. And so it's no surprise if you're actually watching people and you see who lies and who doesn't lie. You might not like what Putin says and what Lavrov said, but they tell you exactly what they're going to do, exactly what they want, straight down the line. So they've started this, as they call it, a special operation. Western mainstream media call it an invasion. But they've done exactly what they said they're going to do. They want to demilitarize Ukraine, remove all the National Socialists, which they're doing very effectively. They did a lot of that in Mariupol. Now they're doing it in Severodonetsk, and then they'll move on to Sloviansk, and they'll move on to Lysychansk, and they'll move into Kramatorsk, and they'll do the same thing there. And they would want, I think, to take over all of the Russian-speaking areas in Ukraine. So, you know, what I said from the beginning is stop poking the bear. This has got no strategic value to the West whatsoever. You know, the south and the east of Ukraine, it doesn't matter to the collective West. They're mostly Russian speakers there. The Ukrainian army has been shelling ethnic Russians and killing them in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions for 8 years. And actually, for 8 years, until this February, a lot of the Western mainstream media was putting out videos about how terrible it were that there were neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Suddenly, they've stopped that, and now they're the good guys. You know, well, there's a narrative switch straight away, which, of course, flips and twists everything according to the situation. And neither of narrative that they're spinning is for a good reason. But what would make sense now, or what would have made sense in February before this happened, and this would have been the easiest thing to avoid, is for Western governments with Zelensky to sit down with Putin and Lavrov and say, okay, let's talk. We're going to stop shelling Russians in the Donbas. We're not going to keep sending weapons to Ukraine. We're not going to keep funding National Socialists. And we can agree that Ukraine can stay neutral. That would have saved a huge amount of lives. Now, I've got no sympathy at all for the National Socialists, but I do feel very sorry for hundreds and hundreds of poor young boys, young Ukrainian boys, 18, 19, 20, who are being sent to the front line, who have never picked up a weapon in their lives. They're not trained to fight, but they're being sent there as cannon fodder. And 100, 200, maybe 500, I don't know how many hundred of these poor young boys are being massacred every day, completely unnecessarily. You know, you got a situation like the First World War, a long war of attrition. And that's what some people want. I've spoken to people connected to the regime in London, and that's what they think they want. They want to keep a war of attrition going because they think, oh, we're going to wear down the Russians. But while they're doing this, they're going to send hundreds of poor young boys to their death every day. And that's absolutely evil. We need to stop this now. So there's two ways to do this. There's only two ways to do this. One is to say, look, let's have a ceasefire at the front lines. Whatever territory you've occupied already is the Russian, in the Russian special operation, you keep that. Whatever territory you haven't occupied, Ukraine keeps that, and we'll just have a ceasefire on the front line. That would be one course of action to take. But of course, nobody's going to do that. It's not going to happen because some people actually want to keep this going because they're evil. Either they think they're going to make money out of it, or some people actually do genuinely want to destroy Russia for whatever reason they have. They want their resources, they want their oil and gas. Some people actually are genuinely, viscerally Russophobic. You can see that in some of the things that people say. You know, talk about being anti-racist in every other situation, but some people now are actually, you know, genuinely hate Russia and are flaunting it, and it's absolutely deplorable and despicable. So, whatever, we need to stop this to stop more young boys from being sent to their deaths. The other sensible thing that you could say is, okay, well, look, Ukraine is a construct of the Soviet era. More territory was added to the Ukrainian Republic, the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, in the time of the Soviet Union. The Donbas area was added, the Crimea was added in 1957. But those areas that are Russian-speaking would be happier being part of Russia. Let's just accept that and say, okay, the areas where there's Russians, let them be part of Russia. The areas which are Ukrainian areas, let them be a separate nation. That would be a sensible thing to talk about, just to talk about. Stop the fighting and talk about it. But would anyone allow anybody to just talk about that idea? No, because no, this would be conceding territory to Putin, and Putin is evil. Like you're not evil, sending weapons to National Socialists, seriously. So, there's two things that would be sensible to do. Will they happen? No, they won't happen, because people are either too stupid or too evil to make it happen, sadly. So this will go on. But ultimately, the Russian special operation, as they call it, or invasion, as the Western mainstream media call it, is going to continue essentially until Russia does take over all of the Russian-speaking areas. And the choice people have to make is, are you going to do this with no more deaths, or are you going to send tens of thousands of more boys, Ukrainian boys, to die? That shouldn't happen. We should stop this now. And that's what I'm calling for, and that's what I've been calling for since the beginning. I hope someone hears this and decides to do the right thing.